Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Today I have a video that I'm going to title, What Not to Do When You're Suffering with ROCD. As many people know, ROCD is a very common fear among OCD sufferers. We had a great turnout for the ROCD webinar yesterday, which was May 3rd. It was a great turnout. We always discuss questions. The webinars are a lot of fun because people show up, we talk about fears, break down fears, show people how to use the principles from disputing, break down the fear of loss of connection, not being in the right relationship, cheating fears, stuff like that. And then we go through questions and stuff. It's a lot of fun. We have a good time. So before we go any further, as always, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, share it, comment down below. ROCD is definitely something that afflicts a lot of people. So as always, I go through and answer all the questions in the comments and write back if any of you have any questions for me. So let's jump right into it. So in front of me, if you keep seeing me look down from time to time, I have everything written out that I want to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is ROCD? Whether you're suffering with ROCD, maybe you're learning about ROCD, maybe you think you have ROCD. So ROCD is what's called relationship OCD. And the only reason we call it ROCD is to give people an insight into what they might be afraid of, where their core fears might lie. So it's lying inside the relationship. And then inside the relationship, it's important to remember that it doesn't just have to be an intimate relationship. It could be obviously a boyfriend or girlfriend, a partner that you're with. It could be a family member. It could be friends. It could be anyone you have a relationship with. Hence why it's called relationship OCD and not called intimate relationship OCD. So we have to remember that OCD has no boundaries. ROCD can latch to anything that you have a relationship with, even pets. So this is something that we have seen where people get really, really obsessive about taking to their pet to the vet. They're super afraid of their pet dying. So as I said, it's called ROCD for a reason, relationship and not intimate relationship. So the main core fears inside ROCD are the fear of never feeling connection again, the fear of being in the wrong relationship, cheating fears, retroactive jealousy, the fear of being a bad person. Maybe you've cheated in a past relationship and you're completely chronic shame and guilt in this new relationship. You're always needing to confess to the person that you're with about, am I a good person? Am I that same person? When you're looking at someone, I always talk about this. If you have the fear of never feeling connection again and you're at dinner and you're looking at your partner, it's going to feel as real as it can get. It's going to feel like you're not attracted to that person at all. Zero physical attraction. You're constantly searching for those love signs, maybe those love languages that we're going to talk about and break some of those down. Hence some of the reasons why ROCD people stay on that cycle of constantly looking for certainty. So that's really the basis of what ROCD is. I think it's important to open up talking about the basis of it. If this is your first time watching a video on ROCD. So the first mistake that ROCD people partake in, and understandably so, is compulsively looking for signs, tips, and tricks for them to figure out if they're in the right relationship, if the person they're with is the one, am I with the right person? And that goes from constantly looking at love languages, constantly looking at marriage statistics, constantly looking at relationship statistics, the Googling, Dr. Google, and just going and going and going at it. So it is important to talk about what the love languages are and the love triangles and how people think, oh, if you're not this person, you can't be compatible with this person. None of that makes a lot of sense, and you can break it down pretty easily. If someone was a particular language of love, and that would mean that they could never change. Humans are constantly changing. People change their beliefs all the time. If your love language was set in stone, then everyone who's ever believed in Santa Claus would believe in Santa Claus. But when you're a kid and you believe in Santa Claus, that is the most all-consuming thing, right? Santa Claus is coming. Woo! Milk and cookies. But then when you get older, you realize that that was a story that your parents told you to excite you because you were a child, and there's pros and cons to doing stuff like that. That's a totally different story and stuff like that. But it is important to talk about that because people get so caught up in love languages. And then what happens is if you're so into the language of love, the other person that you're with, you're thinking there's no way I can be compatible with that person. But humans come together to form a relationship for a plethora of different reasons. It could be good for, maybe they have the same spiritual values, maybe it's good for business and all these other things. There's really no such right or wrong thing on why people are together, no matter what people are telling us. And there's a lot of irrational beliefs out there based around certain people need to be with certain people, and that can't be the case because we have arranged marriages. And those people, especially in the past, a lot more arranged marriages, but still in this time period. So it is important. You'll have to step away from that, move with uncertainty, allow those feelings to overwhelm you, and just move with the uncertainty that maybe this person doesn't share the same values. I was listening to someone that I like a lot in the political sphere not too long ago talking about if you do not share the same values with someone, you could never be in a relationship. And I understand why someone would say that, especially maybe with a religious background and stuff like that, where societal cultures and dogmas are making you think like that. And then you start pulling up research to kind of try to prove yourself why you're right. And with ROCD, we know that's a slippery slope, and you go down the cycle of ROCD. So the second thing I want to talk about is constant confession and constant venting. So confession and venting can be basically the same thing, but I'll use a good example of confession. So let's say you are constantly going to your partner and telling them, I don't know if we're in love. I don't know if I love you. Do I love you? Constantly looking for that reassurance feeling from the person you're with, that will need to be brought down. The reason why that needs to be brought down is because you're constantly searching for the dire answer. You are just 24/7 looking for the ability for that person to prove to you why you're in love. And every time you do that, you fall deeper and deeper and deeper into OCD, because you're never going to be able to prove to yourself if you're in the right relationship. You're never going to be able to prove to yourself with 100% certainty if you're physically attracted to your partner, if you're more attracted to your partner now than you were in the past and stuff like that. So confession and reassurance seeking through venting, and venting is sneaky. Venting can look like this. Your partner asks you, how was your day today? And you go on this really long text message. I don't really know how I was feeling today, and this and that and this. And you kind of get wrapped up in that. And that is a slippery slope for us, because we know that no amount of telling people how we're feeling is going to release the fears that we're holding. So changing our fears over time is how we actually get better from ROCD or any OCD. The third thing I want to talk about was comparing and checking. Now, there's two parts to this. You have analyzing, where you're sitting down on the couch, outwardly trying to analyze if you're in the right relationship. We'll use that for this example. Or the automatic rumination, where you're out at a dinner and someone walks by, a waitress, say I was with my wife and I was suffering with ROCD, and a waitress walks by and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I more attracted to her than I am my wife? That automatic rumination will need to fire on autopilot whilst you live your life and bring that discomfort with you. That is the most important thing I can tell you. It is really important. We're going to talk about tackling rumination as the fourth thing. So where are some of the places that people fall into checking? Physical attributes on social media. So what they'll do is they'll delete all their accounts of avoidance behaviors. They won't follow anyone of the opposite sex because they're afraid if they look at someone who they think is physically attractive, they might be cheating and stuff like that. You have to remember, whether it's ROCD or any OCD, those immediate changes that we make in the moment, those immediate, I need to delete everything right now, I need to never look at the opposite sex ever again, is usually bad for everyone, not just OCD sufferers, but non-OCD sufferers alike, because those immediate changes don't actually correspond with rational outlook and thinking things through and allowing yourself to feel discomfort. So, but the outward analyzing, you're never going to find answers there. You're not going to be able to look at pictures from the past. So let's say you said to me, Nick, well, I was really attracted to my husband in the past. And you're constantly looking back to see, all that stuff needs to come down. That is super important to bring down. It's a dead end for us. It doesn't actually bring us anywhere. And this leads us into point number 4, which is trying to tackle rumination, how maybe many people talk about. The biggest misconception with rumination, and the top 3 biggest misconceptions in all of OCD and anxiety disorder suffering, is that you can bring down rumination in the way that people think. Now, outward analyzing, where you're sitting down and forcefully trying to ruminate about something, like you're trying to solve a math problem in a physics class, that is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is all the times you're out and about and all the automatic rumination sensations are popping up, whether that's intrusive images, sensation, urges, thoughts, whether you're having an intimate moment, whether it's on your wedding day, whether it's the birth of your child, moving in together, all the big life stressors where OCD tries to turn the heat up big time. You have to wear all that like an uncomfortable coat whilst you move through the OCD recovery process and bring those fears down. That is critical. That is very, very important to talk about because many people get hung up on that. And it's totally understandable why we get hung up on that. So the last thing I want to talk about is trying to constantly prove that you're in love. And this kind of goes back into everything, right? So, and this can tie into a lot of avoidance behaviors too. This is actually important. Let's talk about what not to do with avoidance. So what are the big things? Avoiding weddings, avoiding the birth of your children, so you don't want to be there, not having children, not going on vacations, not moving in together, not progressing from maybe a relationship to a fiance or getting married. All those things are going to be major triggers with ROCD. So going into it with a realistic perspective that these things are more than likely going to trigger me is very important. You are better off, I said this in the ROCD webinar yesterday, you are better off going to your wedding, going through with your wedding, having all these intrusive thoughts, images, sensations be with you, have it try to creep in on every moment when you're on the altar, when you're kissing, whatever you celebrate in your religious practice, when you're getting married, whatever it may be. Allowing OCD to be there and do its worst is better than avoiding the wedding full out. That is very important. You got to be honest with yourself because avoidance is never the answer and avoidance gets us nowhere in almost all situations, right? We could obviously argue that and not argue, but debate that on certain things when it comes to addiction because people like to prove that. They're like, what about this? It's for the avoidance behaviors with ROCD we're talking about, those things usually need to come down. So then when the main thing is your people try and prove if they're in love in every different way by go swinging the other way, right? So the intimacy, maybe you're not having intimacy at all. So you're avoiding intimacy. And then you try to have intimacy 15, 20 times a week to prove to yourself why you are in love with your partner. Well, now you're turning an exposure into a compulsive chase to feel something and prove to yourself. Same thing with social media. Maybe you deleted all these other social media accounts and now you re-downloaded them and you're constantly looking at them to try to prove to yourself whether you love your partner or not. That's also a problem. The last thing I want to talk about is cheating. So cheating is a huge trigger, whether you cheated in the past, whether there's a fear of cheating, whether there's retroactive jealousy, whatever it may be. Whatever your belief is about cheating, that's not what I'm here to talk about. You are allowed to have whatever belief you want to have about cheating. But if someone cheats on you or you have cheated on the past, you can apply unconditional self-life, other acceptance to yourself and the situation. Without liking the situation, we know that cheating doesn't really have a lot of benefits in life, but there are reasons why people cheat that we don't know about, whatever that may be. It doesn't write the person off as a human. It's a single act. The example I use in the ROCD seminars is, let's say I made $1 million a year. And I gave $800,000 a year for 20 years, so $16 million, to a charity for kids who have leukemia. And then I cheated on my wife. Well, how do you say you're a bad person when you gave all this money to charity? You can't weigh, there's no mathematical problem that is substantiated throughout human being to human being to human being. Humans are far too complex. You can go to different cultures and look at people who do wife sharing and stuff like that. And then you're like, well, the act is the same. They're cheating on their spouses, but they don't view it that way. So you don't have to agree with the act, and continuing in that act might not be good for your marriage or good for your relationship or good for your psychological health, but you could still apply unconditional self-life, other acceptance, not agree with the act, and move forward with actual unconditional acceptance. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Very important to talk about what things not to do when you're suffering with ROCD. ROCD definitely tried to latch a few times for me bad. And I would think I'm going to leave my wife. I'm going to leave my wife. And I would think, no, that's not the answer. You know what's going on. You're looking for that quick fix, that quick relief. And I had to look at it in a rational way. But when I was really triggered, I would just allow myself to be triggered. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below. And as always, have a great day.